You finally got your diagnosis. After years of stomach pain, brain fog, and feeling exhausted all the time, someone finally told you what was wrong. Celiac disease or gluten sensitivity. You felt this huge wave of relief. Finally, an answer. Finally, something you could fix. But then reality hit. Going gluten-free isn't just about switching bread. It's an emotional roller coaster that nobody warns you about. Today we're exploring the 3 stages everyone goes through: grief, frustration, and eventually, relief. This isn't medical advice, but it is the honest truth about what this journey really feels like. The first thing that hits you is loss. Real, genuine loss. You're not just giving up food. You're saying goodbye to a version of yourself that could walk into any restaurant without reading ingredients. You're mourning spontaneity. Everything you thought you knew about navigating your world shifts overnight. That bakery you loved, off limits. Pizza nights with friends? Now, complicated. Even grabbing a quick sandwich becomes a production. The grief starts small. Maybe you're standing in your kitchen, staring at a loaf of bread you can't finish. Or you're at a birthday party, watching everyone else enjoy cake while you politely decline. These moments accumulate like sediment, building into something heavier. Your food environment has fundamentally shifted, and your brain is still catching up to this new reality. What makes it worse is that this internal struggle remains largely invisible to everyone around you. The hardest part? People don't understand why you're sad about just food. They suggest you just pick off the croutons or ask if a little bit would really hurt. These well-meaning comments sting because they reveal how invisible your struggle is to others. But it's never just food. Food is culture, comfort, connection. It's how we celebrate and how we cope. When you remove gluten, you're removing threads that connected you to your community, your memories, your sense of normal. You might find yourself grieving specific foods with surprising intensity. That perfect pizza place becomes a symbol of everything you've lost. The smell of fresh bread triggers something deeper than hunger. It triggers homesickness for your old life. The identity shift is perhaps the most profound part. You go from being a normal eater to someone with dietary restrictions. That label carries weight. Suddenly you're explaining yourself constantly, defending choices that aren't really choices at all. You become hyper-aware of how much space food takes up in social situations. But here's what's important to understand. This grief is valid and necessary. You're not being dramatic. You're processing a genuine loss, and you need time to adjust to this new reality. The grief stage teaches you something crucial about resilience. You discover which relationships can adapt and which ones can't. You learn to advocate for yourself in ways you never had to before. You start recognizing the difference between accommodation and compromise. This mourning period isn't permanent, but it's essential. It's your psyche making space for what comes next, preparing for new growth even when all you can see right now is what's been cleared away. Just when you think you've accepted your new reality, frustration sets in like a storm system. This is where the learning curve hits you full force, and honestly, it feels overwhelming. Picture your first month of serious label reading. You're standing in the grocery store, holding a bottle of soy sauce, discovering that this basic condiment contains wheat. Then you find gluten in salad dressing. Even some medications aren't safe. Everything becomes a research project where the rules keep changing and you're constantly discovering new ways gluten hides in your world. The restaurant anxiety hits differently than you expected. You call ahead, research menus online, interrogate waiters about preparation methods, and still arrive uncertain. Even when restaurants claim to be gluten-free friendly, you're never quite sure if the staff truly understands what cross-contamination means. One mistake can leave you sick for days, so the stakes feel impossibly high. Then there's the financial reality that nobody warns you about. That loaf of bread that used to cost $2 now costs $6. Your grocery budget doubles seemingly overnight, and you start calculating whether you can afford to eat the way your body needs you to. The expense adds insult to injury. You're paying more to have fewer options. Perhaps most exhausting is the constant mental load. Your brain never gets to rest from food decisions. You're thinking 3 steps ahead about every social situation. Will there be safe options at the work lunch? Should you eat before the birthday party? What if the restaurant doesn't understand cross-contamination? It's like carrying a low-level anxiety that never quite switches off. You find yourself mentally rehearsing conversations with waiters, Googling restaurant menus at midnight before tomorrow's dinner plans, calculating whether you have enough safe snacks in your bag for an unexpected delay. The hypervigilance is exhausting in ways you didn't expect. Your mind is constantly scanning for threats that most people never have to consider. Packing snacks becomes essential, but it also becomes a symbol of how different your life has become. Social situations require advanced planning that used to be unnecessary. You find yourself declining invitations not because you can't manage the food situation, but because explaining your needs feels too exhausting, and the spontaneity you grieved earlier now seems impossible to reclaim. But here's what's crucial to understand. This frustration is pushing you toward mastery. Every challenging restaurant experience teaches you better questions to ask. Every label reading session builds your knowledge base. Every expensive grocery trip shows you which products are worth the cost. Initially, every step feels uncertain and energy-consuming, but gradually, patterns emerge. Safe paths become familiar. What once required intense focus starts becoming instinctual. The frustration stage is where you develop your advocacy skills. You learn to speak up for your needs without apologizing. You discover which friends and family members are willing to learn alongside you. You start building a support network of people who understand. What you do and realize while you in the thick of this exhausting learning curve is that every overwhelming moment is quietly building something. Every difficult restaurant conversation is teaching you confidence. Every label reading session is expanding your knowledge. Every expensive grocery trip is showing you what's worth the investment. The frustration isn't just frustration, it's competence under construction. Then something shifts. It happens gradually, almost without you noticing. The constant vigilance starts feeling less overwhelming and more like second nature. You've found your rhythm, and with it comes a profound sense of relief. The physical changes hit you first. One morning you wake up and realize the brain fog that had been your constant companion for years is simply gone. Your energy returns in waves, not the artificial buzz of caffeine, but real, sustained vitality. Digestive issues that you thought were just part of life disappear so completely you almost forget they existed. You realize how unwell you'd been feeling for so long that you denormalized it as just getting older. But the emotional relief runs even deeper. You walk into a restaurant and confidently ask about gluten-free options without that familiar knot of anxiety in your stomach. You pack snacks for a day trip without feeling embarrassed or different. Label reading becomes automatic rather than anxiety-provoking. You know which brands to trust, which ingredients to avoid, and your mental database of safe foods expands daily. There's something profound about reclaiming your agency in food situations. You stop apologizing for your dietary needs. You become comfortable advocating for yourself. When someone suggests you just pick off the croutons, you calmly explain why that won't work, without feeling defensive or difficult. The confidence you develop extends far beyond food. Successfully managing a complex health condition teaches you that you're more resilient than you realized. You've navigated medical appointments, researched treatments, and advocated for yourself in ways you never had to before. These skills transfer to other areas of life, making you more self-assured in situations that have nothing to do with gluten. Perhaps most surprisingly, you start discovering unexpected benefits that go far beyond what you hoped for when you started this journey. Your skin clears up in ways you didn't expect. That persistent inflammation you thought was just genetics begins to fade. Sleep becomes deeper and more restorative, and you wake up feeling genuinely refreshed instead of groggy. Many people find that eliminating gluten leads them to explore more varied, nutritious foods than they ate before. You discover whole cuisines you never would have tried otherwise. Thai curries, Mediterranean mess platters, Indian dal dishes that are naturally gluten-free and incredibly satisfying. What started as restriction becomes expansion in ways you couldn't have imagined. Your relationship with food evolves into something more intentional and mindful. You appreciate meals more because you've put genuine thought into them. You savor foods that make you feel good, and you've learned to distinguish between what your body actually needs and what advertising tells you to want. The confidence extends beyond restaurants and grocery stores. You stop apologizing for taking up space with your needs. You become comfortable being the person who asks questions, who double-checks ingredients, who advocates for yourself without feeling difficult or demanding. This isn't just about food anymore. It's about knowing your worth and protecting what matters to you. What once felt restrictive now feels protective. You've created sustainable patterns that support your health and happiness, and you genuinely wouldn't want to go back to the way things were before. All three stages, grief, frustration, and relief, are completely normal parts of this journey. They're not linear either. You might cycle through them as new challenges arise or life circumstances change. The most important thing to remember is that you're not alone in feeling this way. Going gluten-free is genuinely challenging, and acknowledging that doesn't make you weak. I'm curious which stage you are in right now, and what's one thing about it that caught you off guard. Maybe you're in the grief stage and surprised by how much you miss the convenience. Or you're in frustration and didn't expect the mental exhaustion. Drop a comment and share what's been the most unexpected part of your journey so far. Subscribe for more real talk about health journeys that nobody warns you about. Because honest conversations are the ones that actually help.